disclaimer so I don't go over. I've left all my notes at home. This is my story, and tissues are there. So it's my story on how I got diagnosed with tuberous sclerosis and LAM. As a young child, I used to have what were my family and the general GP used to call funny turns, but never did anything, never said anything. And I used to have this blackness coming over me, and I thought I was going to die, and my mum used to shake me and say, "Don't be so stupid, because the last time you thought that, you didn't die." When I was about 5 or 6 years old, I don't actually quite remember, but I had, I've got pictures. I had some lumps here and up here and on my neck. And apparently they were removed, because I got pictures before and after they were removed, and I had radiation. Back in the early 60s, radiation on the, because they thought it was cancer. The radiation on the face was quite severe, which then in turn has caused my Hashimoto thyroid disease. So, and then I had the butterfly rash, and of course, you know, no one said anything about that either, and the funny turns sort of kept going, and so I had some tests. I don't remember what they were, and they said, "Oh, you've got a heart murmur," and nothing more was said. So I went along with schooling, went to high school, and I was still having some funny turns, but I just ignored them. When I got around 20, I got married. We had one child, my eldest Sarah, and then when I was pregnant a couple of years later with my second child, and then 3 months into the pregnancy, we were just having a routine checkup, and the doctor noticed that I had extremely large kidneys, so I was rushed off to Charlie Gardner's in Perth for testing. The Professor Haywood there organised a biopsy on my kidneys because I again thought it was cancer. And when he came in the next day after the biopsy, he said to me, "It's not cancer, you can continue with the pregnancy," and that was it. So my husband and I, and my bellowing belly and the other daughter, we moved up to Derby in far north Western Australia. So remote isolation area. She was born in Perth. We had to go down to Perth because they recommended that she needed to be born in Perth due to the maybe cancer that I could still have. So I go down there, she's born, she's okay, had further testing, don't remember what the testing was, no one said anything, and I went on my merry way and went back to Derby. She started what I now know to be as infantile spasms very early. She used to latch onto my boob, and I would tell the nurse up there, "This is what's happening." By the time she was 6 months old, she was then diagnosed with epilepsy. We had visiting neurologists come up, and they said, "We think she's got tuberous sclerosis," so we packed up and moved back to Perth. And I went back to the professor after she was born. She was a year old at that stage, and because he wanted to do routine kidney tests, and I told him about her, and he said, "You've got tuberous sclerosis as well." So I went, "Okay, well, I've lived with it, I'm okay, let's concentrate on her." So I go throughout life, but I was constantly sick. I was constantly having asthma, bronchial asthma, all sorts of things. I was getting chronic chest infections that would go into pneumonia, but this would happen every 3 to 5 years. I wasn't sick every year. And then going along, and my thyroid decided to stop working, or I got chronic fatigue, and then my thyroid stopped working. I got rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, migraines, which I'm on medication for. So I said, "Oh, tuberous sclerosis has taken a back seat, and I have to concentrate on all these other autoimmune conditions that I've got." So I was kind of blasé about it. Jennifer's now in her 30s. My eldest daughter's at uni at the other Sydney University. So, you know, Jennifer is in a group home. So, joined Facebook. My daughter put me onto Facebook back in 2008. She said, "Oh, connect with your friends, find people," that sort of stuff. Well, I found a few groups for Hashimoto's, not tuberous sclerosis. And got in touch with a couple of girls down in Melbourne where I was living, and they, one of the girls was chronically ill. She was chest infections and all of that, and she was searching to find out what was wrong with her. 3 years ago, she contacts me and she said, "You've got tuberous sclerosis, haven't you?" And I went, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, you're always sick. You know, I've seen you where you can barely breathe. You're always sucking on your puffer. You can't breathe. There's this condition called LAM." And I've contacted the professor at the Alfred, and he said, "I don't have it," but she said, "I'm pretty sure you do." Okay, I'll email him. So I emailed him exactly my story, emailed him, and he came back within hours and he said, "This is what you've got to do. If it's positive, get a referral to the Alfred ASAP." So I went to my GP and he just laughed. He said, "But I'll do what he said," because I printed off the email. "I'll do what he said." And I get a phone call and I had to go in, and he said, "Now, you've got LAM, you've got tuberous sclerosis, you've got other autoimmune conditions." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "I want you to give up work. You're going on disability. This is, you know, you can't keep going on like this." I said, "I've got LAM." And he said, "Yes." So he did a referral. I rang up the Alfred, and within a few days I was at the Alfred being tested, and I went to my first clinic 3 years ago in the April. And then we had a luncheon and met all the wonderful ladies, all the different stories. Met Shirley, who has TS and also LAM, well, did have LAM. Well, still, but yeah. And you know, I'm lucky. I do have some lesions in my brain, but it's mild. Apparently I've got some things behind my eyes. I've got the things on my face. I've got the nails, the toes. I've got white spots over my body. I've got this leg browns, this leg stays white. I've got the shade green patch I used to be told that was my birthmark because it was there when I was born. And I've got AMLs on my liver and kidneys. Now, I've had a biopsy on my kidneys, and then I did get, at some stage in this little story of mine, I got really, really sick and I was rushed off to Royal Melbourne Hospital, where again, even after telling them that I had tuberous sclerosis, at that time I didn't know I had LAM, another biopsy was done on what were these tumours on my liver. And they came back and they said, "It's just your tuberous sclerosis, nothing to worry about, just go." And I was like, "Well, what do I do next?" I've never been told what to do next. When I was living in Perth, I was monitored every 6 months by the kidney specialist. When I moved to Melbourne, there was nothing. And just this weekend, it's opened up to me that I realised that just like at the Alfred, I'm monitored every 6 months, I need to be monitored for my tuberous sclerosis. I will say my GP in Wodonga, I moved there in December last year, and when I went to her, because she's supposed to be really good with thyroid disease, I took all my stuff on LAM, didn't have anything on tuberous sclerosis, but I told her I had it, and she said, "Oh, I finally have a patient with tuberous sclerosis. I did my studies in India and we were taught all about tuberous sclerosis." No one in my whole life, I'm 60 now, and no one in my life any doctor has actually said they know about it. So basically that's my story. I mean, it hasn't been, you know, I have really, really bad days. I have good days. The Alfred has put me on a program with, I'm lucky, I've got that mild as well, but I just have to make sure that I take my you know, puffers in the morning and puffers during the day when I need them, and if I get crook, apparently I have to be treated for pneumonia immediately so that it doesn't get any worse. But that's my story. It is a real story, but it's my story, so your story is probably vastly different to mine, and thank you for listening. Thank you.